Think of Larry Wheels, Eddie Hall, the mountain strongman competitors, and Mr. Olympia competitors like Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, and so on. These guys gain so much muscle and therefore also so much strength. They gain way more than 15%. Coach Greg, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing, are steroids better for muscle growth or for strength? Without question, steroids, SARMs, PEDs are going to help you build muscle and strength at an accelerated rate, but which will it help more? Let's face it, there are not really any studies that have allowed people to take test, trend, Anavar, all the things you want for years and see how much strength did you gain? How much muscle did you gain? And a lot of this is going to come down to bro science. So I'll be speaking a lot about what it did for me, the people who I've coached, and people who I've spoken to. And so to truly know this answer without question, they would need to have studies done on a large number of participants who are abusing PEDs. And also, I'm going to be speaking about beyond your natural genetic limit. And so imagine how hard it would be to find all people who just happen to be at their natural genetic limit and letting them take whatever they want for 5 years and seeing what happens. Likely not going to happen. So for today, you're going to have to rely on bro science, my experiences on myself and other people. First things first. It's obviously going to depend on your genetics. Some people are going to gain a lot more muscle and strength than others. It also depends on what PEDs you're actually taking. Some PEDs are going to be more beneficial for strength, others for building muscle size. Case in point, halotestin. Extremely strong, harsh anabolic steroid. I love it for bodybuilding competitions. Love it for strength. But it really doesn't build much size. Hardly any, maybe a couple of pounds. In comparison, if you take testosterone, Deca, D-bol, Anadrol, you're going to gain a lot of size and strength. But a lot of that strength comes at the expense of gaining a lot of size. So if you need to gain a lot of strength but can't gain a lot of size, you're fighting in a specific weight class, or you're a power lifter and you can't gain any weight, you have to take certain steroids that allow you to get stronger but not bigger. And with everything, there are hyper responders and poor responders. No two people get the exact same results. But in general, people who respond well to building size and or strength when natural are the same individuals who are going to respond well when adding in PEDs. I myself, when training natural, was an easy gainer. I gained a lot of strength, a lot of size with nothing. Responded well to natural supplements, I could feel them. And wouldn't that make sense? I am, after all, an IFBB pro bodybuilder. So when I did add PEDs, testosterone, and so on, I was able to build a significant amount of muscle. In comparison, some people train natural for 10 years and maybe gain only 20 pounds of muscle. They add in PEDs, steroids, and they only gain 10, 15 extra pounds. And so they could train their entire life and not make as much gains as I could when natural. It's sad, yes, but that's the harsh realities of life. Now, I myself personally respond more favorably to strength increases than size. When I took PEDs, I gained a lot more strength than size in comparison. I literally set world records in powerlifting, but I'm not on the Mr. Olympia stage now, am I? So what did steroids do for me? Well, for me, they helped me become stronger more so than become bigger. And it doesn't mean I didn't try to get bigger. I was equally ambitious, trying to get as big as I could, as well as strong as I could. I was trying to be the best I could be at both sports, powerlifting and bodybuilding. I was just more favorable in my genetics towards powerlifting. Consider that while only on HRT and adding in RAD 140 and MK 677, I was able to bench press 529 pounds with just some RAD 140 and some MK. However, when then going to extremely high doses of anabolic steroids, 700 milligrams a test, 500 tren, Anavar, Halo, and so on, my bench press can only go up about 20 pounds more than that. You would think if I can bench press 529 pounds on hardly anything, that I could probably bench a 600 if I threw in the kitchen sink. But it just didn't work out for me. So I am a hyper responder to low doses of everything. Give me anything low doses. 20 milligrams of Anavar, that is incredible for me. When I would take 20 milligrams of Anavar, I was like, wow, I can't believe how strong I feel and how much better I look. Hyper responder at low doses. But you up the dose, 100 milligrams, add in test and trend, I don't gain much after that. It's unfortunate for me as I had ambitions that once I up my doses to really high doses, I'm going to be really good. I'm going to be an amazing pro. but it didn't turn out to be the case. Low doses, great results. High doses, not so much better results. But how much strength can you actually gain above your natural genetic limit when taking steroids? Well, it depends. Well, the first thing we need to consider is how much do you weigh? If you have to weigh the exact same amount, your strength is not going to go up as much as if you're able to bulk up. So if you're competing in the 148-pound weight class and you're natural and you take steroids, you could probably expect 5 or at most 10% strength gains. If you bench press 342 pounds at 148, pause, which is what I did when I was 22, and I had taken steroids, I probably could have benched 5 or 10% more than that. That is about 20 to maybe 35 pounds extra. And why? Because I can't gain any weight. If you take steroids and you get bigger, you're no longer 148 pounds. So that was pretty close to the ceiling of strength that I could get. However, if you get bigger, you go up to 165, of course you can bench press a lot more. But how much more? Well, on average, I would say most people will be close to 15%, but it's on a bell curve. Some people are going to gain a lot more than 15%. A lot are going to get less. So depending on if you're a hyper responder or a poor responder, you could expect to gain less than 15%, more than 15%. Some people, they're going to get absolutely massive. Think of Larry Wheels, Eddie Hall, the mountain strongman competitors, and Mr. Olympia competitors like Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, and so on. These guys gain so much muscle and therefore also so much strength. They gain way more than 15%. But on average, most people can expect to be close to the 15% range. So if you've been training for 10 years and you're at about your genetic limit, benching 300 pounds, you probably could bench 345 pounds if you were to take steroids. However, some people are not going to improve that much and others more. It depends on your genetics and how you respond to steroids. My best bench press natural was around 450 pounds. On PEDs, I bench pressed 529 pounds. However, I probably could have benched around 550 at the time, but injured my shoulder. And what about bench press for reps? Well, I did 225 for 43 reps natural, and on PEDs, I got 54. So that's how much steroids help my bench press in going from natural to enhanced. Some people would help a lot more, and some would help less. But remember, that increase in bench press was not at the same body weight. I had added a significant amount of more muscle. My body fat percent got lower and my muscle went up. I also weighed more. And so because my weight had increased, my bench press didn't go up by 5 or 10%. It was closer to 15 to 20%. But that makes sense. And in comparison, what about gains in muscle size? Well, the average person for the most part, also about 15%. So if you've been training for 10 years, you're 6 feet tall, 200 pounds natural, you could likely expect that if you took everything and anything, you could gain 15% more than that. 15% of 200 pounds is 30 pounds. You could expect to be about 230 if you took everything, including the kitchen sink. Some people gonna gain more. They're hyper responders. Maybe they gain 50 pounds and they end up at 6 foot and 250. Others, poor responders, they only go up to 220. There's always going to be a range, and depending on your genetics and your ability to absorb these products and use them effectively, you may or may not get the 15% that I've stated. And remember this, the bigger you are at the start, the more potential for muscle growth that you have. If you're 5'2" and 120 pounds after 10 years of training, 15% of that, that's 18 pounds. But if you're 6'6" and 240 at the end of 10 years of training, 15% of that is 36 pounds. So a taller, larger individual can expect to gain a lot more muscle than a shorter, smaller one. That makes sense because it's a percentage of the size that you are. If you're 120 pounds at the end of high school, not a great chance you're gonna end up at 200 pounds at the end of it. But if you start out at 190, you're probably gonna be a lot bigger than 200. It just makes sense. You have better genetics, you have a greater starting point. If you can touch the rim in grade 8, chances are you're going to be slam dunking by the time you're in grade 10. But if you can't even touch the net, You're probably never gonna dunk now, are you? And you're thinking,
Coach Greg, you're way off. You could gain way more than 15%. I saw Regan Grimes, Chris Bumstead, they gained way more muscle than that.
they never started once they reached their natural genetic limit. You don't know just how big they could have gotten naturally. We don't know if Chris is a hyper responder to high doses of PEDs. We don't even know if he's ever taken high doses of PEDs. Obviously, never take PEDs, but if you did take PEDs with the advice of your doctor and it was legal, so my advice, get at least 5 or better still 10 years of natural training before you start. If you haven't even trained 5 years, you're likely not even close to your genetic limit. Even if you've trained 10, were those 10 years perfect? Did you do everything and anything you could do to make the gains? Did you maximize your sleep, your recovery, your training programs, everything? Probably not. And so even if you've been training for 10 years, do you really think you can't make any gains? I started training at 10. 10 years later, I was at 20. I wasn't even close to my genetic limit. I kept gaining more and more muscle as the years went by. If you start training at 18 out of high school, 10 years go by, you're 28, you still have room to grow. You're not at your limit. But if you do that naturally and you're old enough to make that decision to take PEDs, at least you've waited it out. The worst thing you could do, start at 18. And yeah, I know we've seen guys, Chris Bumstead, Regan Grimes, they look amazing. They started very young. And yeah, it worked out for them, but not all cases end up like this. So if you think that just because you take PEDs, that you can make all the gains, that you could get that pro card, probably can't. And so when you see that transformation that Regan made or other competitors made, and you're thinking,
That's way more than 15%.
that's because they weren't at their genetic limit first. If you just joined the gym and you have newbie gains to make, and you take steroids the first day you join the gym, you're gonna gain a lot quicker. You're going to have newbie gains, which are a lot, combined with newbie steroid gains, also a lot, and you're gonna make all those gains at the same time. It's gonna be really exciting. But then you know what's gonna happen? Those gains are going to slow down and dramatically diminish. Even if you take steroids, you are not going to continuously grow forever. You can start at low doses, you'll make amazing gains for perhaps the first year. After that, probably going to be at your genetic limit on those doses yet again. So if you're at your genetic limit, you go on HRT and you gain 10 pounds of muscle the first year, probably not going to gain much after that. Then you have to up the dose, keep upping it, and so on. So rather than trying to get all your gains at once, try to stretch them out. If you go on your first cycle and you do test and D-ball and you put on 20 pounds, every single cycle is going to suck in comparison. You're no longer going to be able to gain 20 pounds. The growth gains are diminished, the law of diminished returns applies, and it's not going to be as fun in the gym. So my advice, please train natural as long as humanly possible. Stretch out those gains over many years, 10 years plus, and only then add PEDs, and do so at a very low dose, the lowest dose that makes you happy. If you can't stay natural, which is the best choice, and you do decide to take something, take the lowest dose that allows you to make gains. Don't rush in and say,
I'm doing test and trend, I want a pro card.
you don't know if you're a hyper responder. If you can't make amazing gains on low doses, chances are you're not going to make amazing gains on high doses. And even if you make amazing gains on low doses like me, doesn't mean you're going to end up continuing to build on that. If I could have done that, you'd see me in the Olympia. But I couldn't add in any more muscle. I competed at my biggest in the mid 190s, 212 weight class. If I could have added 15 pounds more muscle, I would add the size that it needed. Couldn't do it. Tried. Didn't have the genetics. And trust me, my genetics are far above average. And so if you don't have as good a genetics as me, what makes you think that you can take PEDs and look like your favorite IFBB pro? The majority of people who are taking PEDs don't even look like they take anything. You're at the gym looking around, there's always a few people that you're like,
That guy can't be natural. He's probably on something. Look how big that person is.
the funny thing, there's also people in there and you're looking around, you're thinking,
There's no way they take anything. They don't have much muscle. They're not lean. They don't have any quality size.
and they're the ones taking the most steroids because they want to look average. And so just because you're on PEDs or abusing them doesn't mean you're going to look like you lift. It helps, of course, but if you have really shitty genetics, you're just never going to get the size that you want. So to answer your question, it depends. Some people are going to get better results for strength on steroids, others for building muscle. It's going to depend what steroids are you taking. Are they more androgenic or anabolic? If they're anabolic, they're likely to build more muscle, less likely to build a lot of strength. If you take steroids that cause a lot of water retention, you're going to look like you have more muscle, but then when you come off of them, it'll look like you lost a lot of muscle. And so in deciding if steroid use is better for building muscle or strength, you have to consider what exactly you're taking, at what dose, how much size have you put on, and for how long have you taken it? It's going to take at least 10 plus years of training natural before you hit your natural genetic limit. And when you add steroids on top of that, probably another 5 years before you hit your limit again. You might be able to get a little bit bigger after that, but the gains are certainly going to be drastically diminished. And in the first 3 years of using steroids, that's where you're going to gain the most, by far and away. So if you train from the age of 18 to 28, 10 years natural, you start taking steroids, by the time you're 33, you're probably going to be about as big as you're going to get. Ending it here. GregDoucette.com for coaching, Greg Doucette, IFBB Pro. Please watch the bloopers. Also, the cookbooks, the training books, coaching plans by me and my team. Subscribe, click that bell button to get notified, and comment for the algorithm. And until next time, I am out.